Hello, lovely people. So, how are you all doing today? Well, there are wave and another waves. So, I hope you're taking good care and observing all precautions for people around you and everyone else. So, while we get on to introduce our this week's guest with you, let me welcome you, welcome one and all, ladies and gentlemen, to this lovely episode. And we have not one, we have two guests. I can see those. And we will introduce you to them very soon. So, our guest today is a real estate investor, a graduate from UCLA, Diana Brandt. Welcome to the show,
Yes.
Diana.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. I am good. So, how have you been keeping?
Very well.
Uh, and I know that you have worked extensively in financial sector. You've been a CFO, and now you are a speaker, an educator, writer, and a business consultant. So actually, I call all that a serial entrepreneur. And yes, you have series of qualifications too. So yes, without much ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Diana Brandt. Please go ahead. Floor is yours.
Okay. Yes, so nice meeting everybody. And I basically started a nonprofit in the
Hmm.
summer of 2008,
Hmm.
and it's offering public educational outreach.
Hmm.
It's transitioned to green community.
Hmm.
And it was really with this idea that I wanted to learn more about what it meant to go eco sustainable. And I thought, well, I'll bring others along through my educational process. And that's how the organization started. I brought in people also from City Council, Officer of Education came in. And at the end, she said, this shouldn't just be a group gathering. You should really make this a nonprofit. So I went ahead and I did that. And what we do is we hold public educational forums where we bring in two guest host speakers,
Hmm.
and they're usually the topic is complementary to both of them. So they're not set up in a competitive setting. So, for example, cars of the future, we brought
Hmm.
in a car engineer and a car designer,
Wow.
and they talked about how cars are going to be in the future, which is very cool because for me, the big drive is innovation.
Hmm.
And for us to be able to figure out where the gaps are. If we can, as we all have the ability to be very creative, even if you don't have an engineering background, you can still think of how can I solve this problem? If the problem has been primarily throw a lot of plastic into our waste system and it gets overloaded and ends up in landfill and somehow also into our waterways, then
Very
we
true.
need to work on packaging, different ways to package stuff. And if we
Hmm.
can do that, figure out these materials that are going to biodegrade, but not right when we are actually having them in our homes, that's going to be very useful to us and the environment.
That's
Do you
that's.
have any ideas on that?
Oh yes. Uh,
Any?
not too much of idea yet. Yet the environment is a concern very close to my heart too. And I was while serving and later on as a consultant, I was working in the northeast part of the India, which is kind of grappling with quite a few ailments, especially the colon related. And yes, carcinoma is one of the largest. And quite a few things that are causing that were actually related to the environment and the pollutants that we are creating. Plastic is one big one of them. And you wouldn't believe it did happen that one day I was sitting in my office as I wanted to sip, water. I found it had a peculiar smell, which was kind of a, acidic kind. So I said, "Oh, I would want to check this out." I went and looked at this water filter can, and I saw that probably it was stacked in the sun somewhere for ages, God knows. And that is how it
Oh,
had really changed the properties. So imagine this is what
right.
we are drinking day in and out today without realizing.
Yeah.
And it's not only that, there's so much of pollutants that go into our system by the way of the food that we intake. But anyway, I leave it to maybe some other time and some other show where I am the guest. I am the guest. So
Oh,
yes, so
you
once
are.
again,
You're the guest on your show.
and once again, welcome to the show. We call it Know the Happiness How with Winko Chow. And as the name suggests, this is the show that where we air meaningful conversations, keep them light in order to bring a smile on the faces, to kind of lighten up the moods and bring a cheer uh, into the lives of all those youth, professionals, executives, and people who've been grappling with the negativity in their own workspaces. And especially we target them to the people who living in big cities. And all this idea came to me while I was working as a coach. So today we are going to be talking about something related to happiness and how we can sustain it around in our quarters. And we'll see if we can dwell upon small little points here and there as to hows of happiness, what's of happiness, and whys of happiness. So I look forward to this. I have a feeling very enlightening session this is going to be, as I know a little bit of background of yours. So I know you come from Northridge, California, and you uh, were kind of brought up in the environment of Hollywood. And
Yeah,
correct
I
me if I'm
actually
okay.
there's a yeah, I was born and raised in Hollywood, California, and so I spent most of my life in Hollywood and the San Fernando Valley, which
Hmm.
is part of LA County.
Hmm.
And I also took courses out at Cal State Northridge. So
All
that's
right.
why Northridge comes up on my
Okay.
profile.
Okay.
But yeah, yeah. So Hollywood, my parents were both actors, and my mom
Oh.
came out of musical theater. And then she became an agent where she was representing actors.
Hmm.
And my stepfather, who raised me, he did national commercials. He was in television and feature films. He was on The Godfather Part Two. Personal
So
friends
I
with
I'm I'm
Danny
sh-
DeVito and Sly Stallone.
oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
big
So
names.
so yes, very big names
Yeah.
actually. So I shouldn't be surprised if you tell me that you have worked in some bit here and there in the Hollywood. Have you?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's
My family
interesting.
didn't want my. I didn't really want my brothers and for me to get involved in it, but we actually at
Hmm.
different times in our life we did find ourselves in the industry. I worked in post production. I
Uh-huh.
started in it's all behind the scenes, and they call it the Boys Club. So I'm
Hmm.
wondering, how did I get into the Boys Club? But it was for sound editing and picture editing.
Hmm.
And one of my older, I have three brothers. So the eldest of the three, he worked as a special effects designer on shows like Batman and Spider Man. And then I've got some other brothers that went into acting. They did some acting as well.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and so if I may ask you, I'm a little intrigued, and I'm sure the viewers and the listeners also would be when they watch it, to ask you as to how did you end up in the kind of boys club and not in front of the camera? Never thought of that?
Well, I did a little in front of the camera as well.
All right.
My mother, when I was very young, I guess
All
I was
right.
like 8 or 9,
Uh-huh.
and she had us first on radio. There was an
Okay.
ad called, it was basically about jeans for kids, and they turned this song, London Bridges, into London Britches.
Okay.
So as kids, we were supposed to sing it,
Hmm.
London Britches.
And so you
which
were
was cute. So we did
sporting those
that.
britches there.
Yeah. Yeah, we were sporting the britches, and then I did some modeling, hat modeling. I did a lot of print work, and
Oh,
I did a couple of foreign distribution commercials for cigarettes. I think it was Belmont cigarettes.
okay.
And I don't smoke, and I should. And then I realized as I got older, hey, I don't really want to represent stuff
Hmm.
that isn't healthy. Yeah.
Hmm. All right. So
So
from there to getting into uh, real estate, becoming a real estate investor, then founding an organization, and that too with a very serious purpose behind it. So what is the story there? Would you want to tell us a little more about it? About your mission, I
yeah,
mean.
sure. So well, it wasn't so much a mission when I got into real estate. It
Hmm.
basically is a family business.
Hmm.
And as a kid, again, my mother and my grandmother, they partnered and became investors first, and they invested in a lot of property.
Hmm.
So when I was about 25, they made me the chief financial officer, and it
Oh.
was for their business. They had over 50 units,
Hmm.
and 22 of them were luxury units. So anywhere from 1,200 to 1,800 square feet. That's huge. And anyway, I was not hands on at the time. I was still taking college courses, and I was managing all the books for them. And, it was really neat. So I
All right.
learned that. And then I did escrow. I was pre law. So I also worked in the executive offices of
Okay.
a couple of banks. Yeah. And then
Well,
I basically got myself into buying property on my own.
okay.
So I have residential income properties.
Okay.
And over the years, I've helped a lot of people in the nonprofit sector and small businesses. They're primarily the ones that support transition to green community. And I've just for nothing helped a lot of people with making that transition in their companies. So the
Okay.
mission there as a business consultant, which is separate from the nonprofit,
Hmm.
is showing people how to optimize, obviously, their bottom line, as well as making that transition to eco more sustainable practices that can be in the actual workings of their business and also represented in the service or product that they are representing.
That's very interesting, and
So,
we'll get to that a little later. But before that, I'm just wondering, and I'm thinking, from
mhm.
is it something like from one boys' club to another boys' club? How's this? How challenging
Oh,
is
back to
this?
that.
No, no, not that. I'm just wondering, how challenging is this real estate investment business and the properties that you're holding? And I'm sure these are rental properties, or are you getting the?
I could give you an example.
All right. Oh, please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, I I get up very early and I meet with different
Hmm.
contractors.
Hmm.
So it is another boys club, and I usually have to meet them at 7 a.m., 8
Okay.
a.m.,
Oh.
and get them all set up in different units that are either vacant or where repairs need to be made, or just general maintenance of the property.
Hmm.
And I really work out in the field, which I enjoy, and I'm a people person. But a lot of the people I'm meeting are men, and I'm having coffee with a lot of men.
Hmm.
And I dress in a way that's very tomboyish. So
Okay. All
yeah, I
right.
put on my sweat clothes, my jeans, and my boots.
All
So
right. Yes, it
yes,
looks like you have to kind of tame a lot of people, and maybe. And so you were speaking about helping multitude of business owners launching their dreams, and people who probably would have never thought of owning a business or starting a business. You've helped them. How easy or difficult it was for you, or is it for you? And also at the same time, how easy and difficult it is for them, to small time business owners or small time people who don't have so much of resources to start that business upfront, and how do you approach it?
Well, I'm not a life coach, but I still believe very strongly in mindset.
Hmm.
And what I discover is that a lot of people, what's holding them back is actually their attitude on things. And they're not looking at the possibilities, they're looking at all the obstacles. So if you can turn it around and think in terms of, okay, I have these obstacles that I'm going to overcome. And these are the opportunities that it's going to provide for me if I keep moving forward and being proactive. And I believe in meditation. There's
Okay.
all different types of meditation. I personally do a chant meditation, but some people have said, I've tried a meditation, it doesn't really work for me. So then I ask, do you have any particular type of physical activity that you enjoy, such as taking long walks? That can be very meditative.
Very
Doing
true.
that first thing in the morning, because our biorhythm, it basically is set up for us to wake up in the morning. And a lot of people make the mistake of working out in the evening. When you do that, it just wakes you up, it throws your whole time system off so that you'll end up wanting to stay up later. So if you want to be in rhythm where you get up early in the morning and then go to bed around 9 or 10 p.m., then you should work out ideally in the morning.
Mhm.
First thing, I basically will meditate when I wake up and have that 8-ounce glass of water or a tea. And then right after that, take my dogs on a very long walk, which for me is between 1 to 2 miles. And then I do that again in the evening after dinner for 2 to 3 miles. So it's a 5 mile day. I've gotten, and that's just a base workout. I like to do other stuff besides just walking. So if you can
Mhm.
start to ease things in, like if you like aerobics or tennis or golfing, you add that on top of the walking, you're going to find yourself in great shape. And you're going to start seeing that your attitude's going to shift and you're going to start seeing things in a more optimistic way.
Very true. Very true.
You have to work on that though. Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, being a life coach myself, I know most of it actually, comes from your experiences, your reading, your self-taught kind of things. And like I keep saying, somebody wrote the management, which is way of life, and documented it and sold it to people who were little less wiser. So nevertheless, you can always turn a life coach too very soon. And no wonders,
Oh.
I would see you donning one more hat there. So uh, so uh, while you're doing this, how challenging are the present times for you or for your peers, for your staff, for people who are in a similar kind of business? It may not be really the kind of business that you are, but yes, pertaining to maybe real estate in general. And is it really affecting the morale? I'm sure with the pockets kind of getting emptier, it would be getting difficult for people. So how challenging are the times, and how
Yeah.
do you plan to coping up on them?
Well, I've told people that I've been helping that there are always creative ways to find financing. That is my border collie making
Mhm.
a funny little sound. But and he's right up here on the sofa with me. Uh, Being creative in getting financing. Now you're in a different country, so I'm not quite sure what the financial setups
Mhm.
are like there, but there is a lot of opportunity still here
Okay.
and money because our interest rates have really dropped low. This is the time to try to get a loan if you're going to get one because you're going to lock in a very low interest rate. So they like to say this is when you can get cheap money. Um, and if you have debt, to move your debt, do some sort of uh, where you move it into a lower interest rate product or if you've got properties to refinance at this time, which is something I'm in the process of doing. I'm doing a refi on a duplex.
Oh, great.
And so, yeah. So there are ways, but the biggest challenge is for some people at the when this first hit, they didn't see it coming and they didn't have a reserve. And I work primarily with brick and mortar. And so some of these businesses, unfortunately, they many of them bailed before it was too late, and they just canceled out their leases and took down everything and held major sales to get rid of product, or they gave letters out to their clients so that they could basically figure out what they're going to do next. So they closed their companies, which is sad. And you'll see a lot of that. Like, I'm walking around the city many times, and that's what I see are a lot of closed stores here. And it's too bad, because if they had put a little money aside as a buffer, it would have given them enough time to get into a loan, or even the relief funds that the government has said that they had for people. Unfortunately, though, with the government, they were very slow in their response, and also slow in getting these funds out to small business owners. And in my case, as a owner of residential income property, I'm a small business, but they don't see landlords as a business where they would give relief to for some reason, because we represent people's living and where people are going to make their lives. So for some reason, that's ignored out of the equation. I've managed to get my funding through different creative sources, as well as the refis, where I've taken cash out.
So
And
moving.
so luckily I was ahead of it. I was doing all this before COVID even hit. It
So
was just timing
all
and luck there.
all those people in the region who've not been very smart may still look up to you. And yes, you all know, if you are listening and watching, then you know who where to head to if you want to kind of learn to manage to do business in these trying times. So well, I know our friend there is very eager. That goes to tell me you also animal lover, and you are
Oh,
also
yeah.
also and you've already spoken about the environment. So would you like to tell us something more? I mean, are you doing something related to animals, or in generic terms, are you doing something more to kind of guide people through this environmental issues that we have all around? Be it, even, I mean, let's look at pandemic. I sometimes feel that it is, nature's wake up call for all of us. So, what is your take on those issues?
Well, the wake up call is that some people unfortunately don't believe in climate change, but
Mhm.
the science is real and it is really happening. Through public educational outreach, we're science based. We tell people the difference between greenwashing and science,
Yes.
where they'll take an issue and maybe exaggerate it. There's things that happen in Australia with the fires, that there was a lot being put out about koalas being endangered and on the endangered species list. Well, it was hyperbolic language, because they're not really endangered. There's still the threat of fire. So understanding how to read data and follow scientific journals is really key to understanding what's really going on, and pulling yourself away from potentially being drawn in by false news and greenwashing.
Very true.
So
Very true.
that's part of that.
That
Yeah.
interestingly, that reminds me of the fires in California itself, and I'm sure I haven't really followed them up. So how I mean, I would want to ask it in a positive way. How impactful has that been in a positive way, as to talking of the wake up calls? I mean, in terms of the
Well,
people's awareness, or
I've
in terms of the administration and the government.
Yeah. Well, I've been hit by it in a personal way. I have a lot of relatives that live in Northern
Oh, sad.
California
Hmm.
in the what they call the wine country, Sonoma Valley. And
Hmm.
my relatives did have to evacuate.
Okay.
And then they were told they could go home. And then shortly after they went home, they were told they had to evacuate again.
Hmm.
So they're just now settling back into their home and their routines. And it really did throw things off for them. And because I'm a relative, I got to hear blow by blow how difficult it was. I also have a personal friend that lives in Orange County in the hills, the foothills there, and there's been a major fire going on, and he was recently evacuated. So I think it was about 4 or 5 days ago, he was told he had to leave his house. So if your property is built in these natural, beautiful areas,
Very sad.
unfortunately, you
Very
face
sad.
the fire risk here. Yeah.
I'm
I live in the city area. It's very citified, so I'm not having to worry about fire coming down here, but it's definitely something in the mountain ranges.
I'm sure that they must have gotten back to their lives, but yet the kind of violation that you feel, maybe it is wrath of the nature. It still takes time for people to get over and recover from there, and hopefully they would be recovering very soon. So when we're talking of something related to environment and uh, ecological balances. So, are you helping people out in terms of starting some kind of eco businesses also? And if you're already doing it,
Well,
then how are they affected now in the present times? Are they really posing a challenge?
yeah, I think so. For people going into eco-sustainable business practices,
Hmm.
really starting in 2009, here in the United States, President Obama had opened, they said, the floodgates for eco-sustainable green businesses.
Hmm.
He kind of did. There was some sort of a switch in policy that
Hmm.
caused things to struggle, and the funds were not there in the way that they needed to be. So a lot of people had like a false start.
Hmm.
They started their businesses and then realized they couldn't really continue at the end of 6 months to a year. So many of them ended up closing. And the reason for this is that they're showing in statistics that for people going into eco-sustainable, it's more expensive as a startup, and it takes about a year and a half to really get yourself established in a secure way. And once you are, then it becomes more cost efficient for the company. But it's that first year and a half that's the hardest. Many small businesses, just basic businesses, that first year is typically the big the big thing hurdle in a sense to get through. But again, once they're through it, everything is usually pretty smooth sailing.
All right.
So, but
I'm.
now in terms of working with people, yeah, currently with COVID, I think many people have gone into Shopify where they're selling a lot of their eco products online.
Mhm.
And for some, it's working really well because it's the way they've set up the store. And I'm working with a client right now who has Shopify, and his organization is called World in Love. And I love that. All of us being connected together and loving one another
Very
is
true.
his thing behind there. But his store has not been doing very well. And I take a look at that. I'm not a techie, but I am into the aesthetics, the presentation, and how what what the ease of use is. And if the ease of use isn't really there, it's not that inviting. So I give very good advice and suggestions on what people can do to improve their system, their
I'm
website,
sure.
and
I'm
that.
sure
Yeah.
people would certainly come to you for all those advices, and whatever small little tidbits that they can, pick up here in our conversations, they would also come in very handy. So we were talking about your nonprofit. So as a founder of this T2G community, what are the challenges that you see? People facing in their life, especially in their workplaces. That is one area that I look at, and we're also working in the social projects and with the communities or the societies. How challenging is that?
I think there's still a lack of consciousness
Hmm.
in people's environments when they see things that are like a public announcement about plastics. They recognize that, but when it comes to actually looking at the environment that they're living in, either in their work environment or at home, many people don't recognize that these things that they have in their homes are also part of the picture. So getting people to be more aware of the kinds of things that they're buying, and then figuring out other alternatives that are going to be less impactful to the environment. My biggest thing that would make me very happy, there's a debate about this, is creating a closed loop system,
Okay.
meaning that nothing is really going to go into our waste system because everything is going to be either uh, recycled. Uh-oh. This is what you don't want to have happen as a call come through. Um, so recycling it or being able to keep it and or hand it down to people or drop it off at a thrift shop where they can resell it.
Mhm.
So if we're doing a little of that, but if we work on the innovative part with packaging, that's going to get us closer to that closed loop.
That's
Some people are saying they don't think it's possible, but I do. I really think it is possible through,
I'm very
again,
sure if you look at, yeah,
creativity.
if you look at
Go
it
ahead.
carefully, and and if you are building an ecosystem which can sustain, whatever are the kind of outputs that would come in from a business, it should be able to. I really don't know, but yes, among the qualifications that I have, I am a marketing graduate, by the way. Surprisingly, I did my master's in business administration in marketing, and I was donning
Oh,
this uniform where, so I said, okay, let me pursue HR too. And then slowly I took my callings, but marketing is ever interesting to me. So now coming on
good.
to the other aspect, which is the buzzword around today. The crisis brings in stress, and there are multiple challenges as such that people face in their professional and their personal lives, so which
Yeah.
does tend to affect not only people who are very balanced, or very educated, in terms of really educated or very successful, yet it affects them. And stress leads to another aspect, which is depression and the other fallouts that happen. So what is your take on the aspect of this depression, stress, for with the successful and not so very successful people?
I think that it has to do with, again, our attitudes about things.
Mhm.
And I talk about trying to understand how your brain works, the actual anatomy of our brain, and understanding what each part of that brain does and how it works together as a system before you even start meditating, to just understand also at the front of our brain, they call it the frontal lobes. Uh, the left side is basically where a lot of the negative stuff happens. And then on the right is your positive. And it's really, when you're meditating, it actually helps to balance that out. When they're talking about being grounded, it
Mhm.
really is happening. There is a balance happening in the frontal lobes. And this is where you can move into more of a euphoric state and be in that happy place when you're doing a meditation, because it's actually working on that area of your brain.
Mhm.
So you've heard the thing, the endorphins and all that, it starts coursing through and you get a much better attitude. So if you're doing that first thing in the morning, for me, it creates a clean slate. So you realize you're human, you do the best that you can each day. You go out into your day optimistic and happy. And at the end of the day, whatever didn't work out right, you leave it behind through meditation. You let it go, you release it. I do a nighttime meditation before bedtime. So you release it, and you can do meditation and prayer. Can go together. Some people think, oh, you're doing some sort of spiritual thing and it's separate. I'm a Christian, or I'm a Buddhist, or I'm a Muslim, and that's not necessarily true. You can do these things together. So you move out of the day through releasing, and then the next morning you start again with a new meditation. And you can bring affirmations into that. And if your meditation, like I said, happens to be taking a really long walk in the morning, you can still do the benefit of an affirmation as you're walking.
Excellent, excellent.
So I think, yeah, go ahead.
So, and no, no, I said while these are seriously that stuff which people would love. Is there anything which is even lighter and which helps you push through your worst times or very difficult times?
Lighter, I think for me, it's always been exercise.
Oh,
If I'm feeling stressed out, even in the middle of my day after being with a bunch of contractors, and I take a break at usually around one or
excellent,
two, I will take a very long walk and just, that's why I love photography. If people go to my Facebook profile to
okay,
see a lot of my stories, it's really my photography that I'm taking as I'm walking. So for me, that is a big thing. Moving, getting your
excellent.
body moving.
Excellent, excellent. So, anyways, this is again slightly difficult for people, but this is what we have in common. And I would, think of those times when I was working very hard, and I would have very long days. I was working in one of the very high offices of the uh, bosses of the Air Force. We call them the uh, commander in chief at particular places. So I was the staff officer, and I would that is where I have always been a fitness freak. Yet I thought of maybe after a long day's work, maybe take a have a drink or maybe look for a small little glass of wine, and then I realized what exercise can do to you. Oh wow! I mean, and the science was very simple. It lets you pump in more oxygen, your head clears, your heaviness in the head goes, and all that stuff. So I'm very sure that all these tips will come in very handy for people who would want to look at. And the most important thing which I have noted down is releasing. Oh, whatever your day you've had, let it go by. There's going to be another dawn tomorrow, and you would have a fresh start again. So, and in all these times, did you have a moment or a time where you still felt that things are not going through? And then, what is that one thing or one aspect which made all the difference and you came out a victor?
Okay. I I would say I went through a divorce in 2012, and it threw everything off for me. I wasn't expecting it, and I ended up trying to figure out how I was going to continue with a nonprofit. And a
Mhm.
friend had made a suggestion, you're a person just like everyone else, and think about a theater where when a theater's not actually showing a performance, they make it dark and they'll say the theater's dark for a little while, but we're coming back for another production. So I put that announcement out to everybody that I was making the nonprofit. I said, it's like a theater, it's going to be dark for a little while, but we'll have some other things coming up in the next couple of months. And that worked. People said, well, that's so clever. I love that you said theater. And
Yeah.
so they liked that, and it actually reflected in a positive way.
No,
So
that's a
that
that's an excellent metaphor and an analogy to state there. A theater which will be dark for a while. Oh, I'll remember that one. So when you say that, any other aha moments or any moments of small little embarrassment that you would want to share with us, which I call the awkward moments.
awkward moments. Let me see. I'm just thinking about the aha moments. A lot
Okay.
of them happened to me when I was very young. I
Hmm.
was a very industrious kid,
Okay.
and I was the kid who went around the neighborhood and knocked on everybody's door and said, "Can I help you? Whatever you need help with, if you want me to mow your lawn, I will do that. I will pick up the trash in the front of your yard. If you need your house cleaned, I'll clean it." And I would get other kids in the neighborhood to help me. And they would
Uh-huh.
say, "How do you want to be paid?"
Hmm.
And I would say, "Just pay me with candy." I wasn't even thinking about money. It was just pay me with
And,
the candy.
and they would they
So,
would they would
yeah,
get
go
you to
ahead.
do that. They would say, okay, come, okay, mow my
Yeah,
lawns, and okay, come and do the house.
and my mother was very much into safety, so she knew most of the people that I was helping, and she would make sure that they understood that it had to be sealed uh, candies. And there was one woman who had kind of the beginning of dementia, and she had osteoporosis, so she was hunched over, and she couldn't clean her house. So I would bring 5 kids into her space, and we would just once a week we'd clean it, and she'd give us a bag of candy. And it was such a great experience. I really enjoyed that.
Certainly.
So the thing that I realized as a child, I just knew if I put my lemonade stand out and hang up my sign that I'm selling lemonade, I'm in business. It was that easy.
Excellent.
And a lot of people get hung up with the idea of all the steps they need to take to start a business. You really can start it pretty quickly, and you can be
Actually,
working on your mission statement and making shifts while you're doing it.
very
So
true.
that was something yeah,
And
go ahead.
that reminds me to kind of add to that is that uh, it's probably that work or maybe that intuitiveness or that quality that you had of helping others is carried you through and has brought you today where you're still helping people. And there's nothing better than if you can solve problems for people. You can help them, you can solve problems. That is, and slowly attach some technicalities of that mission statement that you said. Otherwise, if your mission is helping peoples and solving problems, I think your day is made, and that is where you can take it forward.
The thing that made me sad is now during COVID,
Hmm.
there's a lot of things that we can't do that we used to be able to do. For example, I
Hmm.
was eating something that was very good. It was, I don't know if you've heard of Mexican food, but
Hmm.
it's a
We
little
love
bit
it here.
spicy. It's not, oh, okay,
It's
not
closer.
as
It's
spicy as
closer to
Indian,
us. Not as
but
spicy as ours. Yes.
but the Mexican food, they put chili in it, and usually uh, green or red pepper in there that gives it a nice zest. And I bought myself a Mexican meal, and I was sitting outside in this cafe, and it was a lot of food and guacamole. They make it at your table,
Hmm.
so it's fresh and
Hmm.
delicious. But there was no way I could eat all of that. Now, pre-COVID, I would have them take the area that I did not touch or contaminate and wrap it and basically give it to a homeless person. I would
Mm,
find someone homeless and just say, here, enjoy this. It's
mm,
fresh. Just
mm,
had finished it myself. Enjoy the
mm.
rest. Now it's like, where do you go with this? I can't give that food to anyone right now. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Um, uh,
Except, I guess, to my garden. I could give it to my garden, my compost.
No, frankly speaking, not many because we still haven't opened up to that state, and we are still exercising caution. So here people have started to order, things at home, but still not many people are venturing out. And
Oh, okay.
and luckily, the way we were raised, so we were very careful before ordering. So we are little, spendthrift there. So so
Okay.
just talking of COVID and talking of other things. So what is that really makes your day? What is that gives you immense satisfaction at the end of the day?
Well, I kind of touched on this. I've actually never been focused on money.
Hmm.
Money is attracted to you when you're in the thing that you love. When people pick up, it's genuine that you really, really are engaged and you love what you're doing, whether you made any money at it or not. It's that is the interesting thing about it, is how it will attract the money into your life. So I don't go out into my day thinking, oh, if a client needs my help, I usually will say, I'm willing to work with you on a sliding scale and whatever you can afford. And sometimes I've done things absolutely for free so that it can help that other person. And it's the relationships that we build, the long-term relationships. That's really important. And
Right.
people feel they can trust you and they know they have a sense of who you are and what you've done for them. They're going to come back and it is word of mouth. They're going to share it with other people.
Very
So
true.
I get a lot of gratification from that.
Absolutely. And the basics of actually the marketing are relationship building. That is what I feel. It requires a good product. It requires other strategies around it. But yes, I keep saying, your intent is right. There is love in your heart. Your content would be right. And if you believe in relationship building, nothing like it. So you've donned many hats. You've been a speaker, you've been an educator, you're working for the community, and you also a business consultant. What next? You still have a few things to accomplish, or some of vision, some purpose still left out to achieve. And
Yes.
if that is there, what is driving you towards that?
I'm a person that loves experiences. I'm a very curious person and I like to try new things, whether it be trying new foods,
Hmm.
going to a different area of the state in California, or when things open back up, traveling internationally. I love travel.
Okay.
So for me, my future goals, basically, I would like to do a TEDx talk. Most of my public speaking has been in the nonprofit sector, so that's always been there. I'm participating in that, but unfortunately, a lot of nonprofits, it's event driven. So many things are now virtual, which has been different. The other area for me is I still want to get some other degrees. I'd like to get a master's in biology, uh,
Hmm.
ecological conservation. I'd
Okay.
also like to write some books, which I've written many notes. I was in a graduate program for, they called it literary analysis, but my focus was on short story and poetry. So I have a writing background, and there's just so many things. I'd like to continue to help other people through the consulting, which I launched my consulting officially about 8 weeks ago,
Okay.
where before it was just more complimentary. It was just something I was giving back to the community with.
Excellent,
So,
excellent. So I know you live fairly disciplined lifestyle, and the little that I have known you now, uh, you are fairly a straight person. You love to read, you love to exercise, you love to meditate, you love to go for long walks. Yet, if you had to single out one mantra that has been holding you in good stead, what would that be?
one mantra, I would say it's really a prayer, and
Okay.
I am Christian. The
Yes. Go ahead.
Lord, but it could be your Lord too, or your
Yes,
God.
yes. Go ahead.
I like saying the Lord is my light.
Hmm.
The Lord is my light. And
Very nice.
sometimes that's what I'm saying in my meditation. The Lord
Excellent.
is my light. And it helps to lift things and make me feel very good about the day that I'm stepping into.
Absolutely, absolutely. And while you were talking of spirituality, and some people kind of uh, putting spirituality in the bracket of religion. I necessarily I'm a Hindu by religion, and yes, I do practice. Yet I'm a very strong believer, but even much believer I am in the spirit, and I call it sciences. So spirituality is actually science to me, which is all around us. It is all energy that created us. You went to study biology and other aspects, so you would know it there then, that it is a mixture of that physics and biology, that we are all here. So at the end of the day, somebody calls it Lord, somebody calls it soul, somebody calls it spirits. They all actually take us to the same goal, and they are the light, like you
I think
said.
so.
They are the light.
Yeah,
And
I
so
agree.
so while Lord has been the light, is there been a person who's had a tremendous impact on you, or you have derived your learnings from him or her? uh, and if there's been, would you like to share something about him or her?
Well, when this is when I was a teenager.
Hmm.
Now, my mother was a single parent at that time. It was before my stepfather came into my life. And I was active with our church, and there was a minister there that he was all about putting the fund, certain amount of funds in for kids to experience the outdoors. And the way kids could get involved is their parents could either pay for them to go on these trips, or they could write an essay as to why they wanted to be able to experience that trip and what kind of benefits they thought they would get from going on this. Usually they're wilderness trips. And he introduced us to the wilderness. We went into the outback. We were in the Sierras, and I did my first major mountaineering through him. And we we went to the top of Mount Whitney, and we also trained and did more intense hiking, and they call it mountaineering because we had the crampons, the bottom of the boot, and we had to learn how to properly breathe for getting to the summit of Mount Rainier, which has 24 moving glacial plates. We were on rope teams, and that was an amazing experience. I was the only girl in our group. There were four girls, and I was the only one that made it to the top.
Excellent. So that's
Yeah.
that's another connect that we have. I don't do it anymore, but I'm a trained mountaineer. I did my basic mountaineering course way back,
No.
and then I did high altitude trekking, and I also did base camp,
Oh,
base
good
camp to
now.
Everest, and that's the highest that I've done. And otherwise, they've been in Garhwal and Kumaon Himalayas, but not anymore. Not anymore. Uh, Now it's only limited to keeping myself more or less fit in some which way. So it's really been excellent to have you and listen to you, and there's so much
Thank you.
we would really want to know more, and maybe some other time, and we would certainly want you to come back and share some more when you have really established yourself very
Oh,
well,
thank you.
and you would have much more experiences to share with us. So but before we go, would you like to inform our listeners if they have to reach you, and if they want to contact you, where would they do that? And we would certainly put all those things in our link below
Okay.
this. So please do go ahead and
Yeah,
tell us.
well, there's Transition to Green community. It's transitiontogreen.org. That's the website. We're on Meetup, but this is in the United States. I also have a presence on Facebook. There's a profile on me for the
Mhm.
consulting, and there's also uh, Transition to Green has a Facebook page. We don't have a nonprofit Facebook group. Initially we had, and then we decided it was more effective just to post the announcements through the page. So you can show your support there, even if you don't live here in the United States. We're holding virtual, so you can join us that way. And we're opening up more actually. So I think that's a cool thing. In terms of as a consultant, I really invite everyone to come to my page and participate with me there. And you can also reach out to me through Messenger, which is how we got connected.
Yes.
Right? It's pretty easy.
Actually, technology has made things so very easier for all of us. So we wish you all the very best in all your endeavors, and we certainly hope that you keep all those things that you're doing. And yes, like I said, come next time around and share so many experiences with us. It was pleasure having you here on our show, and
Yes,
I'm very sure that all those people who are watching this and who are listening to this would have so many takeaways, right from living their lives to conducting their business or facing challenges. There's been so much learning here, and I'm very sure that this certainly has been a meaningful conversation and has added much more value to the time of our listeners and people who are
good.
watching this. And so we will be back very soon with yet another guest and yet another interesting episode on Know the Happiness How with Winko Chow. Till then, take good care of yourself, keep yourself safe, and yes, do keep following the protocols. And all those in the US, please decide who you're rooting for. uh, Republicans versus Democrats. So it's bye bye from me, Wing Commander Satyendra Chauhan, your resident lifestyle coach from Bangalore, India, and yes, my lovely guest here, Diana Brandt from LA, California. So yes, we sign
Thank
off
you.
here. We sign off here on this note. Stay peaceful, stay happy, keep smiling, everyone. Till we see you again. Bye bye. Take care. Ciao.